Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome to Politically Correct. I'm DK Singh. In this episode, I'm going to talk about why Prime Minister Narendra Modi needs to revamp his team and take a fresh guard. He has been under attack from various quarters for COVID mismanagement. To some extent, some of the criticism is valid. Then again, some other criticism might be coming from his political adversaries. But there are merits and demerits in both arguments. Now, depending on which side of the debate you are, you will find some argument. In the sense, if one side is saying that look, the states had to be better prepared, health is a state subject, and the chief ministers had to be better prepared for the second wave of COVID. Well, you have a valid point there, because there are some states like say Kerala and Tamil Nadu which actually did not drop the ball even when they were facing elections. And there has been a surge in COVID infections there, but their health infrastructure has been very good. In the sense that you do not really see in Chennai or in Trivandrum, you do not really see the kind of scenes you're witnessing, or say in Lucknow or in Delhi, where people are not getting oxygen, people are dying for want of oxygen, people are not getting hospital beds, people are not even getting tested in time. You do not really witness any such thing in Tamil Nadu and Kerala because they were very efficient in planning for the second wave. In fact, just an hour back, I was talking to a bureaucrat friend who has gone to Kerala, who has been in Kerala for a month with his family. And he's saying that he does not intend to come back for the next couple of weeks because he feels safer with his family in Kerala. I mean, it may come as a surprise to you, but that's a fact. And that's how the chief ministers in Kerala and Tamil Nadu managed it despite facing an election. So yes, there is a point that the states or the chief minister should have been better prepared. But the fact also is that during the second wave, the way the center had actually taken control of the entire narrative and entire COVID management, we saw like every day there would be new circulars, there was a national lockdown and all those things. We are talking about Delhi. In Delhi, we saw how Amit Shah went to LNJP hospital. He took a meeting of Arvind Kejriwal and others. He actually took control of COVID management in the capital. We saw how there would be central teams visiting many states, say Kolkata, from where there were reports of fuzzing of figures, how the central team tightened the things there. There were all kinds of interventions by the center. This time you somehow, when the second wave started, you just get a sense that probably the center has dropped the ball. There is this attempt to kind of pass the buck onto the states, that the states should be doing this and let the chief ministers manage things and get the flag. And it's getting unmanageable. But the fact is, even the center cannot do that. For the first wave, you took credit for successfully managing it. Then there was no talk of sharing the credit with the states. We saw how the BJP was kind of shouting praise on the Prime Minister for defeating Corona. Prime Minister himself was talking in such glowing terms about how his government managed to tackle COVID. Suddenly in the second term, you cannot say that, okay, fine, the credit for the successful management of the first wave goes to the center, and states should take the blame for mismanagement in the second wave. It did not work like that. And that's what brings me to this topic, why the Prime Minister is not revamping his team and how he should be revamping his team and taking a fresh guard and start addressing the issues coming right into our eyes. In the sense the Modi government is more into perception management. Even yesterday, actually, there was a big meeting of bureaucrats where the total discussion was how you change the narrative, how you bring out all the positive points about what the government has done. We have to manage perceptions. So entire focus is there to actually manage the optics. On the 30th of May, a few weeks from now, Modi will be completing 2 years of his second tenure in office. In May, actually just 6 months after taking oath in 2014, Modi went for the expansion of his team. He inducted 21 more ministers in the Council of Ministers, taking its strength to 66. And then again in July 2016, he went for another expansion and reshuffle. So July, what we are talking about is probably 2 years and 1 month, 1.5 months. That second expansion happened. Here what we are saying is it's going to be 2 years and there is no indication from the PM or from anybody in the ruling side that probably he's preparing to revamp his team, given that there have been electoral reverses, given that somehow the image of the government has taken a hit, taken a beating, and people are all talking about COVID mismanagement by the center today. So somewhere that initiative to change the narrative is missing, except that, okay, manage the headlines. I mean, that's how you see the entire focus is shifting to. So why is the PM reluctant? But before that, let me come to probably I might have shared this experience with you. It was about 4 years back. The then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had actually called some of us journalists for an interaction with the Prime Minister at his residence. Of course, it was not to be nothing was to be reported. So we spent over a couple of hours with the Prime Minister, about 5-6 of us. But well, we never talked about it, and I'm not going to tell you what transpired there because it was not to be reported. What I'm going to talk about is how, in those days, we used to be under a lot of pressure. I was the national political editor of the Hindustan Times then, and every day my editor would ask me, have you heard of some kind of reshuffle? Is the Prime Minister going to basically expand his team? And we, till then, we are not used to saying that, oh, we don't know, boss. So probably only the Prime Minister or probably Amit Shah, and probably Amit Shah also know. We have no idea. Now we can say that, but in those days we are still a bit diffident because it was much easier to break that story during Manmohan Singh period or before than during the Modi regime, where you don't really come to know. It's only when you are informed you come to know. Ask any of the cabinet ministers; they have no idea. They come to know only when everybody else comes to know. So, talking about that interaction with the Prime Minister, once that meeting got over, I followed him outside and then I went to him and said, "Itna tension hai. Every day I have to explain to my office whether it's happening, not happening. Tension हमारा दूर क्यों नहीं गया? तो हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है, आप इतना ही बता दो. Expansion हो रहा है. Is the expansion happening at all? Just tell me that." He says, "देखो जी, you don't worry. जिस दिन सोचूंगा उसी दिन कर दूंगा. Well, you don't worry about this cabinet expansion. The day I'll think, I'll do it." So the message was that he had not thought it till that evening when I was talking to him. I came out happy finally. Okay, till that evening he was not thinking, so I was safe. I returned from there. Now, every time there is this fresh speculation about a possible reshuffle of the cabinet, I remembered my interaction then about the cabinet reshuffle. So the PM has not started thinking because he's not like Dr. Manmohan Singh, who has to consult Sonia Gandhi, who in turn has to consult the allies and senior party leaders. And so this entire cabinet expansion exercise used to be so elaborate during the UPA regime. Lots of consultations at different levels. You don't need that when you have Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister. He decides, he consults probably Amit Shah, and that's about it. And then Amit Shah goes if somebody has to be dropped. Amit Shah calls him. He's given the message. He goes if somebody has to be inducted. He gets a call from the Prime Minister or in some cases from Amit Shah. So that's about it. It's as short an exercise as it can be. And yet, for the last 2 years, the PM has not felt the need to change his team. Like, he's not changing the team because he believes in minimum government, maximum governance. The slogan he had given during the campaign in 2014, it did not happen. It started with 45 ministers. As you know, at the center you can have up to 81 ministers. Modi started with 45 ministers. In the next expansion, he went to 66. And in the next expansion in 2016, the strength of his Council of Ministers went up to 78. So 78 was the number that Dr. Manmohan Singh government also had after he went for that reshuffle of his team in 2012. So the size of the Modi government was the same as Dr. Manmohan Singh's in 2012. So that entire slogan of minimum government, maximum governance was actually, let's not talk about that. What could be the other reason? Probably a poor bench strength. That's partly true, but you do not really have young, bright, brilliant administrators in the BJP outside the government today. But then that's not completely true, because you have some brilliant people like, say, Jyotiraj Scindia. Jyotiraj Scindia was, I mean, he earned plaudits from Dr. Manmohan Singh for his efficient administration as a minister, for his understanding of the subject. He could be a bigger asset in Modi government. Yes, he does not have the USP that most of the ministers have today, that is psychophancy. I mean, I'm not saying it from my side, just look at their Twitter handle and see what they have been posting. Every day, the minister thinks that, okay, he has written something in praise of the prime minister, his job is done for the day. And that's true in most of the ministers' cases. Anyway, so I'm just digressing there. I'm talking about Jethro Scindia. Then talking about some former chief ministers with long administrative experience. Say, Vasundhara Raje of Rajasthan, for instance. She was chief minister for 10 years. You have Raman Singh in Chhattisgarh. All very experienced people. In Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis. He did pretty well as chief minister. All these people would be assets at the center. The experience of administration that these people have would come very handy to the prime minister when he is facing flack for COVID mismanagement. But somehow you do not really see any initiative to actually bring all these people into the government at the center. You have somebody like Sushil Modi, who was former Bihar deputy chief minister. Well, talk about others like, say, Himanta Biswa Sarma in Assam. I mean, if you decide to make him the chief minister in Assam, fine. Otherwise, he has given a tremendous show of his mettle in Assam as a minister with about 7-8 portfolios. Especially in health and education sectors, he did extremely well. There are many others. You have a lot of young parliamentarians who can induct. Parliamentarians who are raring to go, who are raring to prove their mettle. So, instead of carrying on with a team which looks so jaded and tired, without any ideas, without any initiatives, the PM Modi can probably go for a fresh team, use some people with tremendous experience, administrative experience outside, bring them in, and then give some opportunity to youngsters who are hungry to prove themselves. Instead of just carrying on, but he is not doing that. And you do get surprised, you do get perplexed. Why? Is it because he thinks that, everything is done by the PMO, why do you need ministers? So he does not actually believe that you need a team actually, because a team virtually does nothing. So instead of ministers, you put some zombies or you put some robots in their chairs, and they would also kind of come out and walk around as ministers. And that's about it, because you do not need them to apply their mind. Everything happens from the PMO. All ideas come from the PMO, all ideas are vetted by the PMO, and all ideas are executed by the PMO. So why do you need these ministers? Now that may be partly true, but then the Prime Minister cannot be blaming ministers for that. You do not involve them in the decision-making process. How do you expect them to actually come up with something good when you need them? So what is happening today? He has so many ministers, and he would actually need these ministers to start performing, proving something, coming up with brilliant ideas and change the narrative on the ground that, okay, this government is doing something. Instead, what is happening is all these ministers are sitting at home and playing with tweets, praising Modi, tweeting something, and that's about it. That's where they have become a liability. So is it because he does not really think that he needs a strong team, or is it because of what many have already been saying, hubris or overconfidence or even complacency, that you do not need to prove yourself anymore, you do not have any opposition leader who can really challenge you, and you still remain the most popular prime minister. So who cares? It's okay. I mean, sooner or later this COVID will also go away and things will be back to normal, and I remain the only choice. I mean, I don't know which of these two factors could be behind this reluctance to revamp his team. But the fact is, there is a very clear message coming from West Bengal. In West Bengal, even today, if you hold a survey that, okay, these are the prime ministerial candidates in 2024, who will you vote for? Just trust me, even today, an overwhelming majority will vote for Modi, even today. But what happened there in the assembly elections? That Modi's promise of replicating his governance model was not bought by the voters in West Bengal, because Modi is fine, he's popular, as a person is fine, as a leader is fine. But when it comes to his governance model, now people are not really very sure whether that works in states. It used to work, say, right after 2014 Lok Sabha elections. You had elections in Haryana, you had elections in Maharashtra, where Modi showcased his model of governance at the center, and people bought it. And it happened in subsequent or many subsequent elections in states. But over the past couple of years, we have seen that the sheen that Modi's governance model used to have is no more there. People are not driven by, or people don't vote because they want to vote for Modi's governance model in their states. And that should be a big lesson for Modi. It may be, it may be a bit late, but he can still take a fresh guard and try to change the narrative even today. This entire battle is not about perception management, it's about how committed you are to fight COVID, and the fact that in Bengal people prefer Mamata Banerjee's model of government to Modi's governance model should come as a big lesson or a wake-up call to the Prime Minister. I think even now he can revamp his team, take a fresh guard, and swing into action. Only yesterday we heard at Delhi High Court, it said you cannot behave like an ostrich in the sand, or you cannot be sitting in ivory towers. That's a fact. That's how the center looks like today as it is. But if the Prime Minister decides to take a fresh guard, changes his team and applies himself again, sooner or later you will see this narrative changing on the ground. Thanks for watching. Thank you.